All right. So, look, if there's really not a viable option for a number one receiver in free agency, there is in the draft. And we talked to a guy yesterday talking about Ted McMillan that loved him. And
Yeah.
he's being compared to Tee Higgins, ironically. He's a tall kid. He seems to be kind of being dismissed in this draft. The guy we had on yesterday said that he would have been taken. Would have been taken after Harrison, the kid
Neighbors. And Adunze.
No, he said he would have
In
might
front
have
of
been.
Adunze.
He might, or they were kind of the same.
Ryan Wilson
Okay.
was the guy's.
Yeah, Ryan Wilson.
Yeah, I wouldn't say like that's not too out of line. Like Adunze, I would say McMillan's shortcomings, and I still need to dig more into this, but I'd say McMillan's shortcomings are probably similar to Adunze's.
Okay,
If
so
that makes sense.
If you know. If two quarterbacks are, say one quarterback's taken and Hunter and Carter are off the board, who everyone
Right.
seems to have as the two elite talents in this draft. If the Patriots stay at 4, because if no one wants to trade to get, well, no one would want to trade because their two quarterbacks would already be gone. So if they're sitting there at 4, is this a ridiculous pick to take McMillan at 4?
Wait, so Hunter's still on the board? You're
No,
saying?
he's not. There's two quarterbacks have been,
Then I think you have to
Carter.
take. Then I think you have to take. Abdul
Oh, no, I'm
Carter.
sorry. I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. I screwed myself up. You're right. Okay, say Cam Ward's off the board, but Cam Ward is off the board, and Shador Sanders is off the board. Wait, no. Now you're doing the thing like two sets
Hunter,
alive.
Carter, and Ward
didn't
are
do
all
anything.
off the board. Hunter, Carter, and Ward.
Hunter,
Abdul,
Carter, and Ward are all off the board.
That's what you meant to say.
Are off the board, and no one wants to trade up with you. If you take McMillan at 4, is that a?
It's
is
a
that
reach,
stretch?
but I think what you're asking is it's a reach, but I think almost anybody at that point would be a reach. Does that make sense?
Yes, because
Like, I think
right.
I think so. Like, here's what again, like it's still early. I still have a million calls to make on this stuff, but I would say like just based on like the early stuff I've gotten back, it's Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter on one tier. If you're moving the quarterbacks separate. And then, like, once those two guys come off the board, again, like non-quarterbacks, you have like a big clump of like 8 to 10 players that I think a lot of people in the league are going to see as sort of the same, you know? And so at that point, you know, I think you are going to have, you know, especially in the back half of the top 10, you're probably going to have teams drafting for need, which is really early to be doing that. You know, like normally you're drafting for need the second and third rounds. Like, you know, high in the first round, you just want to try to get a blue chipper. The question is if there's going to be any available after Hunter and Abdul Carter off the board. And there's even some debate on Hunter, you know, like where it's like, is he a blue chipper at either of those? Obviously, he's a very unique talent, but is he Patrick Surtain at corner? Is he Jamar Chase at receiver? Maybe, maybe not, you know? So, like, that's where I think you start to look at it. Is it Mason Graham from Michigan? Is it Will Campbell from LSU? Is it Ted McMillan from Arizona? If you see all three as similar, do you draft for need? In which the case, I think at that point you probably go for an offensive lineman. Or you might base your pick on the depth of the draft. And it's like, okay, like, so if I take a receiver here, how good is the tackle I'm going to get at the top of the second round and vice versa? And maybe that helps guide your decision. It's interesting from that perspective because I do think there's some depth in the draft like this year. Like I think the Patriots are in position to really have like an impact day 2 with 3 picks on the second day of the draft, right? Because I think there are going to be good players available there. But at the top of the first round, you're really in a weird position where you're probably going to be drafting a player who wouldn't go as high as you're going to take him in any other year.
It's interesting. I'm reading this guy now, and he's only got 15 guys.
For most other years.
For 15 guys with first-round grades.
I think, like, I've heard.
And McMillan's not one, so go ahead.
I've heard one team, again, this is early. These things can change. I've heard of one team having 12 first-round grades this year's class.
Including 0 quarterbacks this guy has with first-round grades.
Really?
Yeah.
Hey, Bert, so put your, again, way early here, put your GM hat on, if you will. And if you're Elliott Wolf, Ryan Cowden, and Mike Vrabel. What would you do right now if the draft started tomorrow? What would you do as a head of the New England Patriots as far as players and free agency? Kind of tie that in kind of as well.
So I think like both tackle and receiver, I think you have to attack it on both fronts, Rochi. So like I think you're probably gonna go into free agency with the understanding like that we're probably not gonna get a number one receiver or our foundation left tackle for the next 5 to 10 years on the veteran market. It's probably not going to happen. But you want to be good enough. You want to come out of free agency with enough where you don't have to press a need, where you take a player that you may not really want that high in the top 5, right? Like, so in other words, like you want to be like at least passable enough at receiver and tackle where when you get to the draft, you just take the best player, who you think is the best player. So whether you think that guy is Tet McMillan, whether you think that guy is Will Campbell, or if you think like Mason Graham is better than both of them, and I'm assuming Carter and Hunter are gone, and I don't think it's a sure thing Hunter's gone. Hunter could be there for you. Then like I think you want to be in a position where you just take who you think is the best player, and you do that by just getting to level ground. So that might mean going and signing a Chris Godwin or Alaric Jackson's an interesting name from the Rams. The Patriots have Thomas Brown on their staff, who is in LA with Alaric Jackson. He could be somebody who you could look at and say, like, that guy could at least be like a stopgap left tackle and then play somewhere else on the line once we get left tackle sorted out. I think those are the sorts of solutions that you're looking at right now, just so you can, again, get to a competitive level at those positions so you don't have to press a need in the draft.
What are the odds that Godwin gets to free agency?
I think decent. Like, he really likes it in Tampa. So there's like an intrinsic value for him in staying. And this is his third contract, so he might not be as driven by money as other guys are. He's the guy that I've picked out, Wallach, is the guy that I would, assuming Higgins isn't there, he's the guy that I think I'd want. Now, like, again, this is the way the market is now because the cap has gone up so much because so many guys are able to take care of so many of their own players. In every one of these cases, you have to ask the question, why is he a free agent, right? And if you look at the guys in this year's market, generally it's because A, they're hurt a lot, or B, they're old. Now, Chris Godwin came into the league really young. So I believe he's only 28 or 29 now, even going on to his third contract, right? You guys can look the age up, but he has been hurt a lot. So you have to kind of wrap your head around that. But that's with everybody in the market.
But the thing is, with Tampa, I know that Godwin had that void date on his contract. They moved it back to March 12th, the beginning of the next year, to try and get a deal done. To me, that means they're pretty close. So
they're trying.
If they have Higgins, if Higgins and Godwin are both off the board, you take a look at the rest of the free agent wide receivers, and we went through this yesterday, and we were like, no, really don't want any of these guys. I don't want Stephon Diggs. You don't want Amari Cooper, for the reasons that you're talking about, older, banged up, or an attitude problem.
But like I said, like that's all of them, though, Wallach. You know what I mean? Like, again, you have to ask that question, like, why are you a free agent? And generally, like in this environment where the cap is going up $25 million every year, teams are going to be able, like if you have a guy who's in his prime, who is firing on all cylinders, who hasn't been hurt, who plays a premium position, is he making it to the market?
No, he's not. And by the way,
you know what I mean?
And by the way, Godwin's going to be 29 on Thursday.
Right. So like he's like I would say for a third contract guy, though, that's younger. You know what I mean? Like generally guys are in their 30s when they get off of their big second contract. He's younger for a second contract guy.
All right.
Like he's like, you could see him playing another 3 years at a high level.
Okay. And is Travis Kelce going to play football next year?
So like I heard about a month and a half ago, that like this was going to be it for him. Then he came out during Super Bowl week and kind of went the other way with it. I just don't know whether or not he wants to go out like this. I think that's the one wild card here. But I think there's a real chance he retires for sure.
There's all these viral videos going around of him not trying during the Super Bowl. Have you seen any of those?
Well, not trying. Are you talking about the one where he misses the chip?
There's they use several examples, but it's hard to tell because sometimes maybe he's just a decoy and he is supposed to be just sitting in his zone.
I mean, there was one I know that he got lit up for that really was like, it was sort of, I mean, I haven't asked the Chiefs specifically about like what the thing. I've talked to other teams about it. Like, and I said, can you look at this? Like, what does this look like to you? And it looked to me like he was like intentional, like he missed his chip, but he was leaking out, and they had the screen covered. And a couple people said to me, well, yeah, it was either that or they slid the wrong way. And so, like, I think that there are some. I think it's the perfect example, Fred, of like one of the things about football is like unless you know the assignments, unless you know the different players' assignments, it's really hard to assign blame. And it seemed like the Chiefs had all kinds of sorts of these little issues during the game where I don't know. He's never been a great blocker. I mean, I'm not sugarcoating that. Like he's definitely like he almost plays a different position than Rob Gronkowski played. Like Rob Gronkowski was a Y tight end, Travis Kelce's an F tight end. They're different positions. I would just have a hard time really killing him for the Super Bowl performance based on his age, based on some of the assignment issues the Chiefs had in the game, and based on how beat up he is.
All right, so maybe he should retire.
I think he's like so. Here's the thing though: is like I think at the end of every year now, like he's had to pace himself through the season, and the last 2 or 3 years, and I like he kind of got it down to a point where I think he was able to summon something in the playoffs by sort of sticking to this plan through the season. And they had to pace him because he plays his ass off. I mean, I that's why I really have a hard time questioning effort with him. Like this is a guy who does not miss a rep in training camp. Like they'll offer him veteran days, he won't take them. He practices hard, he plays hard. And I think like they had come up with a plan that sort of worked for him where they could pace him through the season and use him judiciously. And then he was able to summon this like higher level of play in the playoffs. And like this year, it sort of felt like, I don't know, like in the Super Bowl, the wheels sort of fell off of even that, So I don't know. I think he'd admit that he isn't what he was 5 years ago. Whether or not they can get him like in a place where he can perform at a high level in January and February, I think that's the real question that they're asking.
If you like that clip, and how could you not? Check out more videos from Toucher and Hardy here. Point slightly up and to the left. For more Patriots analysis and opinion, hit this playlist. Point slightly down and to the left. And for the latest from the Sports Hub, download at 985thesportshub.com.